The hook. The alien ship drifted through the black ocean of space, broken and wounded like a dying beast. Its silver hull was torn apart by fire and smoke, pieces of metal falling slowly into the void. Inside the ship, the corridors were dark, lit only by the flashing of red warning lights. The sound of alarms echoed, but no one was left to answer them. Only one figure remained, lying against the wall of the command chamber. His chest rose and fell with heavy breath, his skin pale under the strange glow. He was the commander of this once powerful vessel, but now he was just a shadow of his former self. The alien's eyes stared out through the cracked glass of the viewing deck. Beyond the smoke, he could see a small blue planet shining in the distance. Earth. His voice, weak but trembling with emotion, whispered into the empty silence. "Human, what have you done?" The words carried no anger, no hatred, only pain, confusion, and something deeper, something he could not name. His long fingers tightened around a metal shard in his hand. It was not a weapon, but a broken piece of armor. The armor did not belong to him. It belonged to a human. He held it close to his chest, as if it was the most precious thing in the galaxy. The ship groaned as it drifted closer to Earth's orbit. The commander closed his eyes for a moment, and in that darkness memories began to rise. Memories of fire, of war, of a meeting that had changed everything. He remembered the first time he saw a human, a moment that should have meant nothing, but it became the seed of everything that followed. His heart, once cold and loyal only to his empire, had been touched by a creature he was taught to despise. The commander coughed, the taste of iron filling his mouth. He was dying, and he knew it. But before his end came, his mind refused to let go. It pulled him back to the past, to the first time he had heard the sound of a human voice. That voice had stayed with him, haunting him even now. The voice of someone who should have been his enemy, but instead became something more. He opened his eyes again and stared at Earth. It looked so small, so fragile, surrounded by endless darkness. Yet humans had defended it with a strength that no empire had ever understood. The commander's people believed humans were weak, but he had seen the truth. He had seen them fight not only for themselves, but for each other. And for him, an enemy who should have been left to die. "Why?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The word echoed in the empty chamber. Why would a human risk everything for him? Why would a human choose to save an alien when death was certain? He could not understand it, yet he could not forget it. The broken shard of armor pressed against his heart. On its surface, there were scratches, marks of battle, but to him, it was more than just metal. It was proof of a bond that never should have existed. A bond between two beings from different worlds. A bond that changed the fate of both. The commander leaned his head back, his breathing slow. His mind returned again and again to that night of fire. The night when human and alien stood side by side. He remembered the human's eyes, filled with courage. He remembered the words spoken before the end, words that cut deeper than any blade. "Protect them. My heart is yours forever." Even now, the commander could not escape those words. They were carved into his soul. They were the reason he had betrayed his own kind. The reason he had chosen Earth over the empire that created him. And now, as his ship burned and his body weakened, he wondered if it had been worth it. Through the broken glass, Earth continued to shine. Its oceans reflected the light of the sun. Its lands stretched across like veins of life. He could almost imagine the humans standing there, waiting, smiling, alive again. But it was only memory, only a ghost. The alarms grew weaker, one by one shutting down. The ship was dying with him. But the silence did not frighten him anymore. Only one thought remained in his heart. Not victory, not defeat, but the memory of a human who gave him something his people never could. Compassion, sacrifice, love. The commander whispered again, his voice breaking as his vision blurred. "Human, what have you done?" The stars outside did not answer. But in the quiet of the dying ship, the weight of his words hung heavy. He was no longer just a soldier of an empire. He was something else, something changed, And it was all because of a single human. A human who had given everything and asked for nothing. A human whose memory burned brighter than the stars themselves. And as the ship drifted closer to Earth, the commander's eyes closed. His lips curved into a faint, almost human smile. The story of what had happened between them was not finished yet. It was only beginning. First encounter. Long before the commander's ship drifted in ruins, there was a time when he stood tall among his people. He was strong, proud, and feared, a warrior bred for conquest. His empire had spread across hundreds of worlds, crushing resistance with fire and steel. And now his eyes had turned to Earth. To him, it was only another planet, another victory waiting to be claimed. Humans were considered weak, fragile creatures, bound by their small world and primitive machines. He thought conquering them would be easy. He thought he understood what humans were. But he was wrong. The invasion began in silence. The alien fleet cut through the dark sky, hidden behind clouds and storms. The commander gave the order without hesitation. Strike and let them know fear. Cities below lit up with fire as ships descended. Sirens screamed across the streets. People ran. But the resistance came faster than expected. Humans did not fall as quickly as he had imagined. They fought, not with great power, but with courage. Courage that unsettled him. In one battle, the commander's unit cornered a human soldier in a ruined factory. The human was young, his uniform torn, his face covered in ash. His weapon shook in his hands, yet his eyes held no fear. The alien soldiers raised their blasters, ready to end him. But then, without warning, an explosion shook the building. The ceiling cracked, iron beams fell, and fire swallowed the floor. The commander himself was caught under the weight of burning metal. For the first time in centuries, he felt helpless. He could not move, could not breathe. His soldiers tried to pull him free, but the fire pushed them back. It should have been the end. But then, the impossible happened. The human he had come to kill ran toward him. Not away, toward him. Through fire and falling steel, the human grabbed the metal, pinning him down. He screamed with effort, his body burning, his hands bleeding, and with a final push, the beam shifted, freeing the commander. The alien's eyes widened in disbelief. Why would an enemy save him? The human did not wait for thanks. Instead, he turned and faced the fire again, searching for survivors. He pulled one of the alien soldiers out from the smoke, then another. The commander could only stare. A human, risking his own life for those who had come to destroy him. It made no sense. It broke every rule of war, every law of survival. But it was real, and it left a scar on his heart. Later, when the flames died, the commander stood over the human. The soldier had collapsed from smoke and pain. His breathing was weak, yet his hand still clutched his weapon. Even in unconsciousness, he was ready to fight. The alien commander looked down at him. For the first time in his long life, he felt something unfamiliar. Respect, and something even more dangerous. Curiosity. He ordered his men not to kill the human. They argued, confused, but his voice was final. "Leave him," the commander said. That night, as the fleet regrouped, the commander could not sleep. The image of the human soldier burned in his mind. The way he had rushed into fire, the way he had chosen to save instead of destroy. It was madness, yet it was beautiful. A kind of strength the commander had never seen. A kind of strength his empire could never understand. Days turned into nights, and battles continued. But everywhere the commander went, he searched for that human. He wanted to know why. Why would an enemy throw away his life for him? Why would a fragile being risk everything for someone who offered nothing in return? The question followed him like a shadow. He did not realize it then, but his heart had already begun to change. Piece by piece, the walls of his loyalty to the empire were cracking. And inside those cracks, something new was growing. Something he could not stop, even if he wanted to. The first encounter had been short, only a moment in the fire. But that moment became the beginning of everything. The beginning of betrayal, of sacrifice, of love. The commander never forgot the sight of that human's eyes. Clear, fearless, filled with something beyond survival. Something his people had long forgotten. Compassion. It was the day an empire's greatest warrior began to doubt his own people. And all because of a single human who refused to let him die. The bond. The war did not end that night. The skies above Earth still burned, and the ground still shook with fire. But for the alien commander, something inside him had already changed. He carried the memory of the human soldier like a wound that did not bleed but never healed. At first, he told himself it was only curiosity. He wanted to understand why a human would save him. He told his soldiers nothing, but in the silence of his ship, he gave secret orders. Bring me reports. I want to know how humans live. They obeyed without question. They thought he was planning better ways to break Earth's defenses. But deep inside, his reason was different. He was searching for answers. Answers to the question that haunted him every night. Why? The commander studied humans from a distance. He saw them in battle, fighting with broken weapons, standing against enemies they could never defeat. He saw mothers holding their children in the ruins, whispering stories to keep them calm. He saw strangers helping strangers, giving food to the hungry, water to the wounded. It was not the strength of their weapons that shocked him. It was the strength of their hearts. His people believed kindness was weakness. But here, kindness was survival. It gave humans a power far greater than armies. It gave them unity, and in that unity, he saw something dangerous, something that made him doubt the Empire's truth. One night, hidden in the shadow of a ruined city, he saw the human soldier again, the same one who had saved him from fire. The soldier limped through the rubble, his uniform torn, but his eyes still burned with life. The commander followed from the dark, unseen. He watched as the soldier stopped to help an injured child. Though wounded himself, the human lifted the child onto his back and carried him through the ruins. The commander's chest tightened. He felt a weight inside him, heavy and strange. He did not have a word for it then, but it was the beginning of a bond. Days turned into weeks. The commander found himself seeking out the human again and again. Not to kill, not to capture, but to watch, to learn. He began to notice small things. The way the human laughed with his comrades, even after loss. The way he stood in front of others when danger came. The way he always gave more than he had. These things made no sense in the Empire's code, but they made sense to the commander's heart, though he did not want to admit it. One night, fate brought them face to face. The human soldier stumbled into a collapsed street, cornered by alien scouts. The commander stood above, hidden among the shadows. The order was simple: let the scouts kill him. But as the human raised his weapon, outnumbered and bleeding, the commander moved. Blades flashed, the scouts fell. The human froze, staring at the towering figure before him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, the commander turned away, disappearing back into the smoke. He left without a word. But the bond had grown stronger. The commander knew what he was doing was dangerous. If his empire discovered his hesitation, his sympathy, his betrayal, he would be executed. But the pull inside him was stronger than fear. Each time he thought of the human, he remembered the fire, the sacrifice, the eyes that refused to give up. It was not weakness. It was something else, something powerful enough to make him question everything he had believed. In secret, he began to change. When his soldiers captured human prisoners, he ordered them treated with care. When civilians were trapped, he ordered safe paths left open. His men whispered about his strange decisions, but no one dared challenge him. They thought he was being clever, using humans for strategy. But the truth was simpler. He could no longer see them as prey. He saw them as people, and one human in particular as something far more. The bond was silent, unspoken, but unbreakable. The human did not know the commander's name, nor the depth of his watchful eyes. But the commander knew his. He carried it like a secret flame, hidden from his empire, but burning bright inside. And with each day, that flame grew. It warmed him in a way victory never had. It gave him something the Empire never taught him: hope. But hope was dangerous. Hope meant betrayal. Hope meant one day he would be forced to choose between the Empire that gave him life and the human who gave him a heart. The bond was set, and nothing in the galaxy could undo it. The test of loyalty. The war dragged on, stretching into weeks, then months. The skies of Earth were scarred with smoke, its oceans filled with wreckage. The alien empire grew restless. The humans, despite their losses, refused to bow. For the commander, every battle felt heavier than the last. Every order he gave felt like a stone pressing against his chest. One night, deep in the war council chamber aboard the flagship, the order came. The high voice of the Empire, speaking through a shimmering screen of light, delivered it coldly. "Commander, end this war, break their spirit, destroy their homeworld." The words echoed like iron chains around his heart. Destroy their homeworld, destroy Earth. It was the command he had been bred for, trained for, and trusted with. And yet, he could not move his tongue to answer. The other generals bowed their heads in agreement. But the commander's silence was sharp. Finally, he forced out the only answer his people expected: "It will be done." But when the screen dimmed, his hands trembled. For the first time in his life, loyalty felt like a cage. That night, he stood alone at the viewing deck, staring at the blue planet below. Earth spun in quiet defiance, small yet unbroken. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. Cold eyes, a soldier's face. But the shard of broken armor pressed against his chest told another story. The story of a human who had once saved him. The story of a bond he had never confessed. His chest tightened. Could he destroy the world that human had fought so hard to protect? The fleet prepared for the strike. Weapons charged. Engines hummed with deadly power. All it needed was his command, a single word. But his mind betrayed him. He remembered the fire in the factory. He remembered the human lifting iron beams with bare hands. He remembered the child carried on a wounded back. He remembered the voice whispering, "Protect them." Every memory struck him like lightning. His heart refused to give the order. When dawn broke over Earth, his hesitation became clear. Another commander questioned him. "Why do we wait? Why do you delay the strike?" The council whispered of weakness, of betrayal. The commander's jaw tightened. If he revealed the truth, they would kill him without mercy. So he lied. The humans fight harder than expected. Their spirit is not yet broken. If we strike now, it will only unite them more. We must weaken them first. The council fell silent, some nodding, some suspicious. But the delay bought time. Time he could not waste. That same night, he returned to the ruins of a battlefield. There, hidden among shattered stone, he found the human soldier again. The man was wounded, blood staining his side, but still alive, still standing. The commander stepped out from the shadows, his towering form casting a dark silhouette. The human raised his weapon instantly, but his hands shook from exhaustion. The commander did not lift his own blade. Instead, he lowered his head. "You should not be alive." The commander's voice was low, almost broken. The human stared, confused. "You saved me," the alien said, his chest tightening with each word. "Why?" The silence between them was heavy, filled with smoke and tension. At last, the human spoke, his voice rough but steady. "Because life means something, even yours." The words struck deeper than any weapon. The commander turned away, his heart burning. He wanted to speak, to tell the human everything. The order to destroy Earth, the bond he cannot ignore. But his tongue refused. Instead, he only said, "Stay alive," before vanishing back into the shadows. The test had begun. The Empire demanded loyalty. The human demanded his heart. And the commander knew he could not keep both. As the fleet circled Earth like vultures, waiting for his command, he stood on the bridge. His soldiers awaited his voice. One word, and Earth would burn. One word, and the bond would die. The commander closed his eyes, his fingers pressing against the shard of armor. He could still hear the human's voice in the fire. "My heart is yours forever." And in that moment, he knew, no matter the cost, he could not obey. But defiance was not victory. It was only the beginning of betrayal. And betrayal always demanded blood. Human sacrifice. The order to destroy Earth still hung over the commander like a blade. His empire pressed harder, demanding fire and ruin. But still he delayed. Still he lied. Still he searched for another path. Yet deep inside, he knew time was running out. The humans had grown desperate. Every city that survived turned into a fortress. Every hand that could fight carried a weapon. And in the ruins of one burning city, the commander found him again. The human soldier, weary, bloodied but unbroken. Their eyes met across the smoke. No words at first, just the sound of gunfire and the scream of engines above. Then the human spoke. "You shouldn't be here." The commander stepped closer, his voice low and heavy. "They wanted to end it. They want me to burn your world." The human did not flinch. Instead, he looked straight into the commander's eyes and said, "Then choose, not for them, not for me, but for yourself." The words cut deeper than any blade. Choose. It was a demand the Empire had never allowed. But it was a demand his heart could no longer ignore. Before either could say more, the sky split open. The fleet descended in force. Blinding lights tore through the clouds. The Empire had lost patience. If the commander would not give the order, they would give it themselves. The first wave of fire rained down. Buildings crumbled, people screamed. The commander's chest tightened. If Earth fell now, the bond would die with it. Then chaos. An explosion shook the street, throwing the human and the commander apart. The commander staggered to his feet, only to see a massive war machine descending. A siege walker, sent by his own people to finish what he would not. Its cannons locked onto the city, its core burning with deadly power. The commander knew its strength. No human weapon could stop it. But then, before he could move, the human soldier rose, blood dripping down his arm. The human grabbed a fallen pack from the rubble. Inside was a core detonator, unstable and deadly. He looked at the commander, his face calm despite the fire around them. "I can stop it," he said. The commander's chest tightened. "No, you will die." The human gave a faint smile, tired but unshaken. "You still don't understand, do you?" His voice was quiet but steady. "This isn't about me. It's about everyone else." Before the commander could stop him, the human ran, through fire, through falling stone, through the roar of engines. The commander shouted, his voice shaking the air. "No!" But the human did not look back. He climbed the burning wreckage, sprinting toward the towering siege walker. Bullets tore the ground. Heat scorched his skin. Still, he pressed forward. Every step was pain, but every step was choice. The commander fought through his own soldiers, striking down those who blocked his path. But he was too far, too late. The human reached the walker's core. With one final look at the sky, he whispered words only the commander could hear. "Protect them. My heart is yours forever." And then light, blinding, burning light. The detonator exploded. The walker shattered into fire and metal. The shock wave tore through the streets, hurling the commander to the ground. Silence followed, heavy and cruel. When the smoke cleared, the walker was gone. The city was saved, but the human was gone too. Nothing remained but broken steel and ashes. The commander staggered forward, his knees hitting the rubble. His chest ached with something deeper than wounds. He pressed the shard of human armor against his heart. For the first time in his long life, he felt tears burn his eyes. Not for his people, not for his empire, but for one human who had given everything. His soldiers whispered in fear. They had seen him cry. They had seen their commander fall to his knees. But he did not care. He no longer belonged to them. The empire had asked for loyalty. The human had asked for nothing. And yet, the human had given more than all the stars in the sky. The sacrifice carved a scar that would never fade. The commander's heart, once a weapon, now carried a promise. The words echoed in his mind again and again. Protect them. My heart is yours forever. The human had given his life not only for Earth, but for him, and that truth broke him and rebuilt him all at once. From that moment, the commander knew he could never again serve the Empire. He could never again raise his blade against Earth. The test was over. The choice had been made. His loyalty no longer belonged to his people. It belonged to the memory of a single human. Forever. The change. The explosion of the siege walker echoed across the ruined city. The fires slowly faded, leaving only silence. The human soldier was gone, but his sacrifice lived in every heart that had seen it. For the alien commander, the silence was unbearable. His chest felt hollow, his breath heavy. The shard of human armor pressed against his heart burned like fire. He had lost an enemy, a savior, and something more. And in that loss, he found a new truth. When the fleet demanded his report, his voice was cold. The humans resist harder than expected. The siege walker failed. The council grew furious. You are weak, they hissed. You shame the Empire. But the commander did not bow. Instead, he raised his head and said words that froze every soldier in the chamber. Humans are not weak. They are stronger than us. Gasps filled the room. Never before had such words been spoken. His second-in-command stared in disbelief. You dare betray your own kind? The commander's voice thundered like steel. No, I betray nothing. I speak the truth. Humans have something we do not. The council demanded his execution, but his soldiers hesitated, for in his voice there was something they had never heard before. Not fear, not pride, but conviction. The Empire moved quickly. They branded him a traitor. Ships were ordered to fire upon his vessel. But the commander was faster. With a roar of engines, his ship broke formation. He turned his weapons not against Earth, but against his own fleet. Lasers cut through the void. Explosions bloomed in the dark. His soldiers, though afraid, followed him. Not because they understood, but because they believed in him. For the first time, he was not just a commander. He was something more. Down on Earth, humans watched the sky light up with alien fire. At first, they feared it was the end, but then they saw something impossible. An alien ship defending them, its cannons destroying the very fleet that had brought them to the edge of extinction. The people whispered in disbelief. Why would he fight for us? No one had the answer, but the commander knew. He remembered the humans' last words. Protect them. My heart is yours forever. And so he did. Every shot he fired, every strike he made, was not for glory, not for conquest, but for a promise. The battle was brutal. Dozens of enemy ships surrounded him. His shields cracked, his engines screamed. But he fought with a fury he had never known. Not for empire, not for victory, but for the memory of one human who had shown him a different way. The war outside became a storm, but the war inside him was already over. His choice was made. Forever. When the last enemy ship fell burning into Earth's atmosphere, silence returned. The commander's vessel drifted, scarred and broken. His soldiers looked to him with fear and awe. What now? One asked. The commander's gaze turned to Earth. The blue planet shone beneath the stars, fragile yet strong. We protect them, he said. His voice was calm, but unshakable. They are not our enemies. They are our future. Some of his men lowered their heads in shame. Others trembled, torn between loyalty and fear. But none dared to oppose him. They had seen his strength. They had seen his resolve. And in his eyes, they saw something terrifying and beautiful. He had changed. He was no longer the Empire's blade. He was something new, a guardian. On Earth, the humans slowly realized the truth. The alien commander who once sought their destruction had now become their shield. Whispers spread across the camps. The alien fights for us. Why? Why would he do this? No one could answer. But the commander did not need their gratitude. He needed only to honor the sacrifice that had given him a heart. The Empire would come again. He knew this. They would send more fleets, stronger weapons. But he was ready. The commander who once followed orders now followed only a promise. And in that promise, he had found freedom. He stood on the viewing deck, staring at the blue world below. For the first time in his life, he felt peace. The war was not over, but his soul was no longer in chains. The change was complete. He had chosen Earth. He had chosen humanity. He had chosen the bond that would never die. And somewhere in the silence of the stars, he could still hear the human's voice. My heart is yours forever. He pressed the shard of armor to his chest and whispered, and mine is yours. The legacy. The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky. The earth turned slowly below, its oceans reflecting the pale light of dawn. The war was not over, but for the first time in history, humanity stood with a protector not of their own kind. An alien commander who had once come as their destroyer, now stood as their guardian. The fleet he once served lay in ruins, scattered fire across the void. But he knew the Empire was not defeated. They would return with greater fury. They would brand him a traitor, a name cursed in every tongue of his people. Yet he felt no fear, because he no longer belonged to them. He belonged to Earth. The humans did not trust him at first. How could they? He was the face of their suffering, the shadow of their nightmares. When he walked among the ruins, children hid, soldiers raised their weapons. But he did not fight. He did not argue. He only worked. He lifted the wounded from rubble. He carried food where hands were too weak. He shielded the weak with his own body when enemy scouts struck. Slowly, whispers began to change. Perhaps he is different. Perhaps he fights for us now. And though their eyes still held doubt, their hearts began to soften. Not because of his words, but because of his actions. Every deed was a promise. Every promise was for one human who could no longer walk beside him. At night, he returned to the viewing deck of his ship. Alone, he stared at the stars. The shard of human armor never left his side. It rested against his chest, a constant reminder. He would hold it in silence, whispering into the dark. Human, what have you done? You gave me a heart. The stars gave no answer, but inside, he felt the echo of a voice that still guided him. Protect them. My heart is yours forever. Generations passed. The war raged on, but Earth endured. Not because of strength alone, but because of unity. Humans stood together, and beside them, the alien commander fought. His name became a legend, not spoken in fear, but in reverence. Children grew up hearing the tale of the warrior who came to conquer, but chose to protect. They called him the guardian of Earth. They said he carried the soul of a human in his heart, and though none could know the full truth, the commander knew it was real. His body aged, his strength slowly dimmed. Even alien flesh cannot fight forever. But his will did not weaken. Every battle, every scar, was a tribute to the one who had shown him another path. When he could no longer fight as he once did, he trained others, humans and aliens alike. He taught them not only war, but mercy, not only strength, but compassion. His soldiers once asked him, "Why do you protect them still, after so many years?" He gave no long speech. He only pressed the shard of armor to his chest and said, "Because one human believed in me when no one else did." In time, the humans built a monument, not of stone or steel, but of light, reaching into the sky. At its base, two figures stood carved in silence. One human, one alien, side by side. The words beneath read, "Sacrifice makes us more than what we are." The commander would stand before it in silence, his eyes heavy, his heart aching with memory. To others, it was just a statue. To him, it was truth. The human's legacy was alive in every breath he took, every choice he made, every world he saved. One final night, old and weary, he returned to the viewing deck. The stars stretched endlessly, the earth still turning below. He pressed the shard of armor against his chest, his breath shallow, but his spirit unbroken. And with his last strength, he whispered into the silence, "My heart is yours forever." The lights of his ship dimmed, the stars blurred, and in that moment he felt no fear, only peace. For he knew the legacy was not his alone. It belonged to a human who had given everything. It belonged to Earth. It belonged to the bond that no empire could destroy. And as the galaxy turned, the story of a human and an alien lived on. A story of sacrifice, compassion, and love. A story whispered across worlds. The story of a question that never truly ended. Human, what have you done?